Hi, I'm Danger Dan Jers, the host and GM of the D&D Real Play podcast, D&D Dark. Join us on Wednesdays for an absurd, over-the-top comedy horror adventure, starring some of history's most infamous monsters.
I'm Ben Magnet. I play Mary Frankenstein, our barbarian.
I am Daniel Cruz. I am playing Imhotep the Mummy, our cleric.
I'm Jordan, and I play Larry Talbot, a lycanthropic warlock.
I am Grayson, playing Jack Griffin, the Invisible Man, the party's rogue.
I am Aaron. I play the Phantom of the Opera, our bard.
For more information, go to dndarkpodcast.com and listen to us anywhere you find podcasts.
Let's go. Master of all things tabletop. With the Paladins of Podcast. They ruin the games you love by talking rules that suck, how to build kick-ass encounters, destroy worlds, and really get your players invested. So go ahead and throw that fistful of dice at someone. Because we're going on a side quest.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to SideQuests with the Paladins of Podcast, Rob and Eli. How are we doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a lovely rainy day.
I had some bad weather out here the last week. Like, the rain was awesome. The tornadoes that touched down and moved from essentially Grand Rapids to Detroit. Not many of them had a lucky day, but
yeah, the rain did come with a little bit of a thunder and lightning storm, and now there's a fire like a couple miles of my house. But
you know, rain
I like
and fire,
the rain.
They don't seem to mix. I like the rain too. You just recently had Elicon3, right? Third year in a row?
Yeah, it's the third year that my gaming group has gotten together. Like every year we get together and like rent an Airbnb and game for a weekend. It's a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah. Now, when you do Elicon, do you guys bring, is it like a potluck of board games? Do you guys choose to just play one tabletop game for 72 hours straight? How's it work out?
Yeah, basically we just play Hackmaster for the entire weekend. I don't think anyone brought any other games.
Nice.
We don't bring any other board games to play or anything. We all show up on Friday at various times. And usually that's when we try to get out any like pre-game stuff in terms of like getting your like equipment or like minor side quests, or we kind of try to clean up as much as we can so that, I mean, ideally when everyone gets there, sometimes we even play Friday night. Sure. But it kind of ends up being playing anyway, since it's like mainly a lot of role playing. You know, we just kind of have fun with it. Like, this is just like our time to have like our characters reconnect, and then we're reconnecting. So, it's good to catch up. And then, yeah.
When you do your, for example, like you said, you pretty much play Hackmaster the entire time you're there. Yeah. You are the primary game master for that, correct?
Yes, I am.
Do you ever switch off duties or tasks or responsibilities for that, so you at least get a chance to play during Elicon3, or
not for this gaming group. I mean, I play in some other groups, but this gaming group I run and they all play. I mean, we've been playing for 4 years, and maybe we'll try to do a switch. I have no idea, but I honestly like playing, and it's certainly a different game than when we started. Because like every time we get together, this is like the perfect forum when we're all together and we can really like chat about any sort of issues that we're having, like both with the game, with the campaign, with each other, like just everything. So basically after every Elicon, I always take a break. So I'm going to take a break of probably like a couple, 3-4 weeks, and we won't play any games, and we'll work on the next section of the adventure and like try to incorporate and like assess with anything like how the campaign's going. And these weekends they're long, and it's a lot of playing. But like we also play like this time. I think we played probably 9 a.m. to around 10 or 11 p.m. every day. Yeah. a couple factors add into it. It's pretty much about the same type of gaming that we play every time. It's about 12 hours, maybe a little more. But usually at the other places, we like take a break for lunch, and we'll go do activities like swim. And this Sunday we played some disc golf, but just like anything, because it's mentally taxing to play that long.
Yeah.
Fortunately, this year we didn't, like, the place wasn't quite what we expected, and so we didn't have as many things. It was a beautiful spot on Mission Ridge, which was a fun place to have a questing adventure. But there wasn't a lot of stuff to do around, so like it was harder for us to take breaks that were like, because like we like to hike, we like to play disc golf, we like to go swimming. So that was a little tougher this year.
But like you said, normally you like to have some form of activity sort of thrown in there just to help break up that taxing and grueling 12-hour session.
Yeah.
I respect that. I remember when I was younger, rolling through 10 to 12 hours was no problem. Now that I am near 40, I like to do 4 to 5 hours. And then I'm like, yo, I'm about maxed out for what I want to handle with you people. So
yeah, I think this Elicon was probably at the extreme of us just playing. And so next year we're actually talking about like setting some strict timers on like, hey, we're going to play for 2 hours, take a break for this much time, play for this much time. Like, we're going to set more strict times on how much we're going to play, and just going into it, we're like, here's what we're going to play, here's when we're not going to.
I like
we'll
that.
See if it works. We'll work on the timing, because sometimes we're just like in the groove and
I get that. Like, even though I only game from 6 p.m. till 10 p.m., we have a scheduled intermission at 7:30, from 7:30 to 8. Like, that's smoke break, bathroom break, grab some extra food, be distracted, open up communication, etc. And then everybody shows up at 5, but we don't start officially rolling dice until 6. So that 5 to 6 period is catch up bullshit, go over notes, burning questions, our campfire moments that you would talk to us about many, many episodes ago. I still do. It's much less frequent, but people like to just sort of jump in now, and I'm like, all right, we'll give them what they want. But yeah, I keep that strict intermission in there. I think it works out. It helps a lot. I like it.
Yeah, I think this is the first year that we used 3D terrain. So I
really?
used some, and I think it worked really well. And I think it's actually going to be helpful going forward in also having intermissions, because there is some like setup time for a lot, like setup and takedown time for on some of those. Like, you can only set up so many like encounters at once with those things. So
I actually ended up getting not quite. I tried foam core board, like the thicker poster board that's got the foam core in it. Yeah. And I've put a grid on it and a double-sided taped 3D terrain down. So when I had to swap out terrain, I was just moving huge chunks at one time.
That could work. I had what I had set up is I had some of like the Dwarven Forged like individual tiles, and super fun. It was a huge hit by all the players, and I really enjoyed it as well. So I think I'm going to expand on that, and then building that and taking that down can also work as part of the starts and stops that we have. So.
Yeah, it's good to have that. That way you're not breaking story. People aren't just sitting there doing nothing, and then you don't have to worry about people up and leaving 2 seconds before you have something ready to go. I like that.
We also did some like combat music because they had some pretty big combats, and I think I might try to. I know we had done that for a couple, like 6 months of this 4-year campaign we did online with some audio, and I think I'm going to get us back into that because that's fun. I might even try to get it as well for when we're playing online. So.
Now you're going to consider using Sirenscape?
Yeah, that's what I really like using. I really like Sirenscape.
Yeah, they're a good bunch of people. I remember talking to them for quite a bit when I was at Gen Con this last year. So I love it. But for me, anything that takes away from my focus, I can't do because I get confused. I leave music playing in the background. So general lo-fi medieval music.
I feel like for me, this is the replacement of the person that, like, used to make maps with graph paper for the party, which we're playing virtual. We don't really need someone to record notes. Or not record notes, record like the map.
Right.
So have someone control the music. And that's why I like Sirenscape, is because there's so many options, and it's all pretty easy to pick up. So
yeah, that's cool.
For a player, I can sometimes just say, like, hey, something like this, and then it's easy to find. So.
I get that. And I think it'd be, like, I love the idea and concept, especially whether it's online or in person. For my in-person setup, I'd like it similar to how I'd want it online. But I love the idea of kind of like a MIDI player or a drum beat pad, where a soundboard is what most people refer to these as. Just a soundboard where you push one button, as they do in radios, and you get your cha-chinks for your sword clashes, or your swings as you draw weapons. I think it'd be cool because that way I can just press one button and it would be fine. But because I don't feel like I don't have to. Damn it, Eli. Yeah, I need to shut up. So I actually have a MIDI player. I could just label keyboard keys and do it. It wouldn't be that hard at all.
There you go.
In fact, I'm looking at my MIDI keyboard right now. So, I guess for me to be functional, I have to have it organized a certain way. And for me to do that, I want a table set up a certain way. My table is a conference table. It's flat. I don't dig it. And online, I would just have to make sure I've got enough bridges or systems or setups to get everything in play. And it's not my style to do it that way.
What do you mean you don't like flat tables?
So my conference table is wonderful to play at. However, if I was in a world that revolved around me, my DMing station would be a desk that is recessed lower than the tabletop, so I don't have a DM screen that blocks me off from the full view. So as it's recessed, I'd be able to have a spot for certain buttons, etc., and everybody would have desk space with a 4 to 6 inch lowered vault in the middle. So it would be essentially dynamic. And much like the Wormwood table, I would have a crank so I could raise and lower a section of the playing vault so I could have tiered levels.
Ooh, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is one thing that gonna have to work on for 3D Terrain, is all the different level changes.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, I actually made some with my laser cutter. I made some risers for characters that fly. And I designed them to be made out of 3mm thick material, not realizing the material I had was clear 2mm material. So my kerf and gaps were too big. They didn't hold very well. But the design was freaking nice. So it wasn't too bad.
Little shrinked.
Yeah. Yeah, not too bad.
We got one of those that we used. It worked well. Of course, the one person that flies a bunch didn't bring that character to this con, so. But overall, it was a great time. I had a blast, but good. I'm also going to enjoy a couple of weeks where I don't have to prepare, and I can kind of work on larger preparations. A lot of brainstorming.
Now, what I remember us talking about before is, even if there's not a specific game, and when you do it online, you guys still at least gather together to do something. During this intermission for game, are you still going to be gathering with your group to do something? Or is it just a 3 to 4 week zero contact situation?
We'll probably actually do like a relatively zero contact. We'll probably just we'll probably chat about it a little bit, but we probably just won't gather. So
okay, that's fair.
Just get a break, a refresh, and we saw a lot of each other this last weekend.
That's true. And I like starting out. I love the concept of Elicon. I think it's incredible that you at least get together on a regular basis, a yearly basis with your friends. These are individuals that you had also known prior to online game, correct?
Yeah.
So
well, one of them is the brother of one of my friends, and so I didn't know him until he actually joined the game. So
But still, I mean, there was a way in for that gentleman. He wasn't a random person that you met on the internet. So
That's
there
correct.
was there was some trust and credibility there. I like that. And I like, again, the taking some time off, because I've been experiencing burnout with one of my campaigns lately. And
Time to take a break.
yeah, and I'm going to tell everybody, because all of our listeners have heard that, I'm running 2 campaigns. I'm running once a week, and they're a little bit larger campaigns. And since the beginning of the year, we had the issue with my arm. We had the game going on. I had physical therapy. I wasn't working full time, so I had time to prepare, time to think. And I'm still off of work, still doing physical therapy. But the birth of my daughter, so a lot is kind of gone on. It's been exciting, but it's been drawn out since February. So over the last 8-9 months or so. 8 months, because we're not into 9, 7, 8 months. And what had happened is I let my parties become a little bit more lax on their focus. And one group is still really good. They stay pretty focused. It's easy to keep it contained, and it's been enjoyable to work with them.
What do you mean by focus? Like, are you talking about, like, their characters aren't focused, or them as people not focused?
Are you looking for a D&D podcast with a dark side? Something more like Game of Thrones and less like Monty Python? Tale of the Manticore is part dark fantasy audio drama, part solo D&D RPG. There's no plot armor here. The dice make all the important decisions. Join me as I resurrect the excitement, wonder, and emotion of old school D&D. Made for a mature audience, Tale of the Manticore is both a fiction and a game. It's the story where chaos rolls.
Both. And I've got an issue with each, because both my parties are, one party, the characters aren't focused, but the players are focused and at least participating in game. My other game, the players aren't focused, but their characters are, as long as the players can keep their heads in the game.
Is that the game you're burning out on?
I am. I'm burning out where my players themselves aren't focused into the game. And, it comes down to people who are constantly unable to commit to schedule, so I make plans people can't show up for, or they leave early, so things have to change right in the middle of game. We lost 2 players, we gained 1 new player. I'm trying to integrate them in the story. People aren't showing up, nobody's really keeping solid notes, and I'm not having as much fun with this, because I can't keep track of everybody's constantly changing the game parameters. Everybody knows that we game every 2 weeks. When they ask me if we're gaming, I'm like, guys, it's every 2 weeks, unless specified otherwise. If you don't hear it's not, it is. Please don't ask. I don't want to be a babysitter. So I've been burnt out, and it's been the last 2 or 3 sessions where people have called off pretty quick to where game is, and my plans have just sort of died 20 minutes before game.
I wish I could play any sort of music, but it sounds like the death of a campaign there.
So that's what I was concerned about. But
don't be concerned about it. It's better to have campaigned than never to have campaigned at all.
True, and we've been going for about a year. And
perfectly respectable.
Absolutely. And nobody wants to pull out, nobody wants to back out, nobody wants to quit. But because the 2 players that left a month or 2 ago would like to return in about a month, I have decided that we will continue to meet, but instead of playing the primary campaign, we will play light fare board games, card games, let other people run one-shots, random games, things to just help bring back a little bit of fun and enjoyment to our gatherings, because we've been gathering and still having a good time, just not focused on the story. So this will allow me to integrate new characters in, refresh the story, and give everybody a soft reset.
People, they might just not be into the campaign as it is. Have you thought about doing like a campaign reboot? Like,
Yes.
keep their characters, but throw them a completely different and much more like, do this quest.
Yes, I have. And that's actually part of what I'm going to be doing once I get everybody's return date. My 2 other players, their return date picked out. And everybody's been enjoying the game, and everybody's enjoying the campaign, but I've also noticed burnout in a few other people because their lives are a little hectic. One of my players will put work before, I don't even want to say it that way, because while it's work related, it's not work hours. So, like, he went out to hang out with a boss of his in the middle of game because they asked him last minute. So,
yeah,
it's okay.
How do you know they're like? I mean, that's a tough one. To put the game over work or put the work over the game. Personal life, work boundaries.
Yeah, and again, I don't mind, but after constantly either not showing up or just being unavailable, it makes it kind of difficult. Like, I'm not motivated to participate as much as a DM if my players aren't motivated to participate as players.
Well, what does your social contract say about a player doing that at the frequency they're doing it?
They would be removed by vote.
Well,
they haven't missed enough in a row. So they haven't broken contract, just spirits, which would still break contract. Once we all get back together, we'll go over session 0 again. We'll have it. We'll give them new direction. We'll refortify the hatches, inject more fun, because I asked my players, like, what are the things that they want to see? My new player wants to see things that are more fun, lighthearted. So just kind of go from there. But this is for me to have a break because, damn it, I need one at this point. I'm wore out.
Yeah, that's fair.
How do you deal with that on your side of everything, especially with something like Elicon? You're already taking 3 to 4 weeks off. Do you ever get a situation where you're feeling burnt out? There was a time you were running multiple games a week.
Well,
Are you still running that?
For this group, this is kind of like how I take my breaks. Like, we play a bunch, we play all year, builds up to us getting together and hanging out, and then, there's kind of like a, break time, then we play some more.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I do breaks. And like, if I need a break or if I need to take a week, like, and prepare more, or if I'm not mentally in the right space, I'll like let folks know, and we'll play a different game, or we'll play a board game. That's usually what we do. Is we'll still get together, but we'll play a board game. And also every so often it just happens that we can't get a quorum on a week. So sometimes we, like, if the quorum isn't, no one can make it on a week. Sometimes we have a built-in break in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was in Portugal, we took a break. So
yeah.
So I guess go on vacation. That's how I take breaks.
Well, I think you have to, and I went as long as I could without it. And I think if we were still more focused and having as much enjoyment out of it, there'd be more motivation there. But I see where I'm lacking, and I'm starting to slip in my I don't want to say DMing skills or abilities, but my participation as a DM is starting to hit a level where I do not enjoy anymore. And it's not that I don't enjoy DMing, I just don't enjoy the level of participation I'm putting forward. I don't feel like I can put more forward. I need to take a small break.
Well, it does sound like your answer to, I feel like I'm putting too much effort in this, is to put in more effort to try to bring everyone back in.
After a break.
Yeah, but it's still like your answer to, oh man, I'm putting in so much effort, is to take a break and then try to put in even more effort.
Go back to the amount of effort I was before. Not more. Where I was happy, where everything was rolling well. So, like, it can be disheartening. I didn't realize how disheartening it could be when you have players who have to step away from the table for whatever reason.
Yeah, it can suck. I mean,
yeah.
So I think sometimes the answer is, look for a different group of players who's willing to put in the same amount of effort reliably.
Well, again, we all started that way. And as I started slipping, it seems like everybody else started slipping as well. Um, there's a snowball effect to it. I can see it. I recognize it. I know where certain changes happened and when they happened. And I know that the root cause comes down to DM. And it's okay.
I disagree. I don't think that you slipping in effort should mean or like in perceived effort means that they should slip in effort, because it's not you and them following. It should be you all working together to build this story, right?
I do agree with that full-heartedly. However, I also believe that they look at the DM. Most players will look at a dungeon master like a leader, and leading by example is generally a really good thing. Like when I started standing at the table, the more energy I put in, I get more out of my players. The more excitement I exude, the more excitement that they feel and reflect back. So that mentality shift is cumulative give and take from both sides.
Right,
so
but shouldn't you also have players that are coming to the table wanting to try to bring that energy for you to reflect it back?
All right, that is like that's like a loaded question here for me, because as much as I want to say yes, I would absolutely love that. It'd be great, because on days I can't give 100% right away, if I got a player who can and they can get me to 100% because it excites me, it energizes me, that would be fantastic. Most times players just come, unload their shit, and slowly build into game. So it is I don't want to say my responsibility, because you're going to yell at me again for that. I take on that responsibility to be the leader to help get them in and excited and ramped up. I want to give them something they haven't seen before, or a feeling that they haven't felt yet today that's going to get them psyched for game. And I enjoy that. I do. I like that part of it. But being that guy all the time is difficult.
See, this is why I think like part of being a GM is like you can let any player play at your table, but you also need to have some say in it. Because like my game that's been going on for 4 years, it's players that I think they're all incredible and phenomenal. And so that's why they're in this group. It's like I didn't just start this group on a whim. I was like, who are the best players that I've played with in all the games I've ran in and played with? And I was like, well, let's invite them to the table.
Right. And that's how it really started out. And the reason I ended up with 2 games is because I had a few players that I really liked playing with who are unavailable. I had more players who were available at a certain time, so I went with that group. And then when my schedule freed up, I was able to start 2. Now, I think I could rearrange a few of them back and forth and pull in other players. Like, I've got plenty of players who are waiting for my schedule to free up now. But I've got the committed game, so I know what I'm going to do. I know it's going to take a little bit of a few weeks, but hey, the plan is there, and I'm excited for it. So, I'd also like to switch topics randomly, if that's okay, because something hit me like a brick.
This is what we're known for: side quests.
All right, I tried something new with my non-bored out party.
Okay.
So hackmaster, for example, right in its name, hackmaster. A lot of gritty combat, a lot of things going on. Would you contemplate running something like a court case in hackmaster?
Like, would I consider like creating an adventure that is court related for my players, or
no, like a court drama procedural in the courtroom session?
I mean, this is kind of like a loaded question, because like I could say yes, because like I could see my players getting into some murder hobo situation and in a highly bureaucratic city and having to go through the law to do that. So like I could see something like that happening. But if I were to, like, if I was like, oh man, I want to play a courtroom drama, I wouldn't think to use hackmaster.
All right. So the reason I ask is because while we play first edition Pathfinder, I modified, hodgepodged, pulled together some rules and situations for if-then style arguments and skill checks and DCs to do a court case that portrayed one of my players accusing members of his backstory, NPCs from his backstory in a murder trial. And so what we did was I gave my actual players character sheets based off of the characters from his background. We were a few people light this game, so it worked out really well. So they got to be the individuals on trial with skill checks and everything. My player, his character's name is Alexios. Alexios told the whole story from his background, so they were filled in on all the clues, and we're like, hey, go ham, make up lies, do whatever you want. Let us know when we have to make DC skill checks against what, and we'll do the same as I created a lawyer for the situation. And we had it set up so the jury, each member also had 3 jurors that they had to keep track of. So a little more work here. But they would roll a d20 plus a d6, and that was their various levels of skill. So every time they had to make a skill check, they would roll a d20 plus 6, so it's not a static number. But everything that passed or failed would ultimately be tallied up, and that individual juror would be the verdict. They had more passes or fails, they'd either guilty or not guilty. So it was kind of hodged together a little bit, but it was entertaining. And I thought, shit, if we modify this a little bit better, we could have a courtroom style system, which would be fun.
You should write an adventure for it. That's the sort of thing that I think would be perfect for an adventure. If you have an adventure that showcases this kind of system you've created, great. Other people can use that system, and you have a huge example to work from.
Yeah, I liked it. And usually when you come across things that happen in character background stories, they want to do something like, we're just going to kill them. Okay, fine. But now there's actually a legal case. They got to participate in the legal case. They got to determine what skill checks were used when. They participated in a trial. Out of the 3 individuals in their background story, one of them was found not guilty. One was found guilty and sentenced to death. One was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment. And it all followed on what he assumed his background NPCs' personalities would have been like anyway. So it worked out. It was really fun.
I think it's great for like a game that's high fantasy or has a similar like court system to what the US is.
Right.
Because that's what everyone is going to be basing it off of in courtroom dramas. I mean, personally, for me, I don't really see that as my fantasy setting court.
Right.
If that makes sense.
It does.
So, like, if I were to try to run a court for my players, I would try to, there's going to be a lot of unfair justice. A lot of, it's just the opinion of the one judge. Or I'd try to look at similar like law and judicial systems that existed in the same relative time period.
That's fair. That's fair. Because a lot of times when you look at things like high fantasy, you have judge, juror, and executioners usually all wrapped up into one, or there's a council of individuals. Especially if you look at high elven society, there's usually a council of elders that decide the fate of the young kid who screwed up and accidentally burnt down his village. And he gets exiled, and people hate him, and he goes on adventures, and we fall in love. You know, the usual trope.
Yeah.
All right. It popped into my head. I was like, I did this. I thought it was kind of fun. And it interrupted the other topic change that I was hoping to go, but it's still a good transition because I want to get your opinion on something else.
Well, let me also just say that
I
think that's a great way to like introduce like your players' backstories in a way that gets everyone in the party involved. I think that's really awesome.
Thank you.
All right, what's the other thing?
So, I am writing an adventure that is hopefully going to be released around Halloween horror based called Echoes of Vaerock, and I've been racking my brain on how I want to get the adventure to move along, and I have an idea, but it feels very video game esque. And I'm thinking about forced time progression. What are your immediate thoughts on that before you have any detail?
Like in terms of real time progressing game time?
No, as in the party will complete or fail certain tasks, and upon that result will lead into the next chunk of time. So saying, yes, you've completed this task, night sets, you are nighttime now. Or you have failed that, and now it is nighttime.
I mean, yeah. Usually when my games, when players do things, time advances.
Okay.
So
that, I guess it feels different for me because I'm saying when I run a game, it's usually, all right, as you guys are traveling, yeah, you travel through the day and into night. This is what happens. But now I'm going from that to literally, yes, you have completed this task, it's nighttime.
I mean, I think that's fine for like an adventure to do, to be like segue to nighttime. I don't think that's an issue.
Okay. Okay, it doesn't feel.
I think part of an adventure is like, I mean, adventures by definition are going to be a little bit railroady because they're creating a certain size sandbox for you to play in.
Right.
So.
Right, and that's where I was having some of my issues. Like, I actually ended up starting the initial manuscript for Vaerock, and I shit you not, I absolutely deleted everything from it and start over from page 1 a second time because I didn't like where the adventure was at. In fact, it felt too open-ended, if that makes sense.
Well, I hope you didn't delete because
no, I saved a copy and.
All right, good versioning.
Yes, I do, and my labels are, I would like to say immaculate, but half the time I don't remember them 3 months from now. But this time, it's labeled Vaerock Redirection. That's where I'm working. So if I redirect another time, I gotta give it another version number. But have you ever had an instance where something felt too open-ended?
Yeah.
That's where I was. I was like, they've got all these things that they can do, but they're not going to get to the main story. There's no main story. There is a main story. There's like, hey, this is what it's about, but they can do this entire adventure without ever doing that. And I was like, it felt vague. It felt empty. It felt lifeless. So when I rewrote, that's when I decided that I liked the idea of forced time progression. Like, you have certain amount of time to do these things, and if they are or are not done, it's going to affect the final boss style encounter. So I'm setting it up where players have 7 days, 14 different phases to go through, 7 day, 7 night phases. And if they don't do, or if they do certain things throughout those 14 phases, it will completely modify the end encounter.
I think one thing to keep in mind is, if you're writing this, how much of it is actually facing the players? Like, is the GM just viewing it in phases? Or are you telling the players, oh,
no,
the day phase is over, you're now in the night phase?
Yes, because the way the town functions, it functions differently at nighttime than it does at daytime.
I mean, I don't think that needs to be like a you are now in the night phase declaration.
They likely wouldn't get a solid declaration like you're now night phase. It's not like werewolf kind of thing. But
well, that's what you're sounding like.
I realize that now. No, it's essentially when they do something like, yes, you have successfully stopped this ritual from performing and daybreak begins to crest over the mountains. So they know that it's morning time. and then they could rest or do whatever they want, or force a rest. I'm sorry, I already said rest, but force march essentially through the day. Then there's going to be issues, or that they continue to stay awake. Things are going to get difficult as well.
Yeah, I think those are good things to play with.
Okay, so baking them in is not a bad idea.
No, I think it's a great idea, because like part of what I like about adventures is like each adventure usually has their own sub rule set that they want you to use, right? Like this adventure really uses cold weather, or this adventure is set here, so use these sub rules. Like, I think that's the ideal spot for an adventure.
That's fair. I like that. I think that we've talked about it before. And when I wrote the Lost Libraries of Tembaria, I added a few things in there like that. Like, hey, they're going to be going through the desert. Roll on this table here to make sure that they're not losing track of where they're at. So having those small little changes, adding something to it, is how you've described it to me before. As long as you're adding something to it can make it worth it. So I guess it's not a bad idea. I just felt it was a little too game mechanic-esque, and I was concerned for that. But yeah,
we're playing a game after all.
True, so felt too video game-esque. But hey, if Eli likes it, the world's going to like it. I'm not worried.
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome possum. So we got a few minutes left before we run out of time. Anything exciting planned for the future?
No, but I started reading some of the Emberwind adventures.
Yeah?
Maybe we'll talk about them sometime. My Traveler game that I'm playing in is going to come to a close. I don't know if I'm going to play a game. I think I might have to GM if I wanted to maintain a sci-fi weekend or sci-fi game day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little worried about that, but so I might start GMing another sci-fi game. But cool. I think if I do, I'll play a Star Wars Edge of the Empire like pre-built adventure, so it won't be that intensive.
Hey, that's all right. That's all right. I was looking back through some projects that I need to shore up, and I ran into an issue where if I don't write down the idea completely, I have to decipher where I'm at or rewrite it.
Deciphering notes. I've done that a lot.
Yeah. It's not too bad. It gives me plenty of things to work through, but it's not horrible. The Emberwind stuff is great, by the way. I really like that. Speaking of other games, I got some kind of exciting news. I have to get up on the website at epictablegames.com, but I reached out to the team who did Inferno for 5e.
Okay. I have no idea what that is.
It is a Italian game company that had produced the Divine Comedy and Dante's Inferno as a 5e module. It's written in Italian first and then translated into English after the fact, which is really cool that they put that much work into it. But the game looks beautiful, badass. Like all the artwork split into 2 books. It's phenomenal. 3 books if you want the book of game art, which I thought was cool that they did that. But I reached out to them when I met them at Gen Con. We did a follow-up through email. They sent me a lot of answers back to some questions, and I will be able to get that hopefully up by the end of the week or weekend and release that kind of short interview and coverage that we had early next week.
Awesome.
So, yeah, it was super exciting. And I like the fact that as a small independent publishing company, I still strongly believe that rising tides bring all boats. So I will talk up anybody who wants to talk about their stuff. I love that. You and I, we both love this.
Heck yeah.
So, in fact, if anybody wants to be on SideQuests, let us know. We'll see what we can do to schedule you in, and we'll talk about your stuff all day long. But until then, check us out on Facebook or online at epictablegames.com, and we'll see you next week.
See you later, alligator.
Okay, new intro. We've changed the name, And we're still using the word paladin. Paladin. I mean, it hasn't been used in the English language in about 200 years, but okay.